Hello everybody and welcome to Dathan on Shuffle and to my latest episode of New Album Spotlight, the show where I put the spotlight on a new album in progressive rock that I think you guys will enjoy. If you're fans of similar music to me, I'd like to bring attention to bands that are still making great prog today, and I have a good one for you guys today, a prog metal band called Kingcrow and their new album Hopium. This is a fantastic group that's been around for quite some time. They were founded in Italy back in 1996 as Earthshaker, but since changed their name to Kingcrow and produced a couple of self-produced demos / albums under this Kingcrow moniker back in the early 2000s. The first album I was aware of was Phlegathon back in 2010. And since then, they've released In Crescendo in 2013, Eidos in 2015, The Persistence in 2018, and now Hopium in 2024. They have a sound not unlike, a lot of modern progressive metal groups. Think Porcupine Tree, Riverside, Opeth, maybe even a little bit of like Carnival and that side. But on this album in particular, I think they bring a pretty fresh, almost 80s synth approach to the table. It feels a lot more modern sounding and has these almost pop elements, these funk elements, I'd say. It's nothing wildly different than what you'd come to expect in modern progressive metal, but they throw in their own little touchstones into 80s synth work and this kind of funk edge and this darkness and brooding twistedness to their music that I think sets them apart. It's not unlike Leprous, in fact, which also has an album coming out not too long from now. But I actually prefer this album to the upcoming Leprous because I just think it's a bit fresher, a bit more modern sounding, a bit newer. But I think the Leprous album is also worthy of attention. I just think this band has really reached another level in this modern prog metal scene, and I've really been enjoying this record. I think it's just really catchy and fun, but also dark and brooding and heavy, and all the things that you'd want in modern progressive metal. The lineup here for this project, according to Prog Archives at least, is Diego Marchesi on vocals, Diego Cafola on guitars, keys, backing vocals. We've got Ivan Nastasi on guitars and backing vocals, Riccardo Nifosi on bass and backing vocals, and Thunder Cafola on drums and percussion. So a great lineup of musicians from Italy. They're really fantastic at what they do, and the production just sounds pristine. It's very modern sounding, has this kind of cool edge to the sound that I think sets it apart from some of the other prog metal acts in the genre. It's a really clever album that I just have really come to love. Every track has something unique about it that catches my ear, a lot of earworms, a lot of expressive emotional vocals, a lot of quirky beats and different things happening in the instrumental work, some high-octane instrumental passages, and sometimes they like to repeat these phrases over and over, but add a lot of layers and a lot of elements that bring a lot of excitement and a lot of build-up into the music that I really appreciate. The album starts off with Kintsugi, which has a bit of that bouncy, poppier feel that I've been talking about, but that twisted darkness underneath. Really stellar musicianship throughout this track. It's only like 4 minutes long, so pretty short on prog metal standards, but the perfect length for what it's trying to achieve. Has a bit of that dark 80s synth vibe with a killer catchy chorus, and like I said, some almost funkiness embedded into the track that's really fun to bop along to. Glitch is one of my favorite tracks, also just under the 4-minute mark. You get some string synth washes before you get this quirky beat leading to some cool glitchy sound effects. Because it's called Glitch, I think it really leans into that aesthetic, and you hear these kind of glitchy, almost electronica style sounds. But it's still organic and still them doing the instrumentation, but they really are able to do it in a quirky, interesting environment. Just a really cool vibe. I love that stop and start nature and quirky pop feel that is embedded into this track, and it gets very hard hitting and allows for that prog metal to shine through, even amongst all of these glitchy, cool elements. It's just a really fantastic track. Parallel Lines is a little bit on the longer end, almost nearing 7 minutes. We get more of that dark synth part in the back with some shuffling beats and intensity. There's a beautiful kind of dreamy pre-chorus section that I really like, and I like how it alternates between this heavy hard-hitting moments and these more dreamy psychedelic type moments as well. Really cool extended instrumental piece towards the end, which has these hard driving guitar stabs and virtuoso drumming with these atmospheric keys in the backing, giving a lot of time and space for this track to develop and come into something really great. And I did want to highlight that the keyboards is a really cool element on this release. I know I've been talking about the 80s synth work and that kind of stuff. From what I've read about their history, I'm not too familiar with their previous releases, but I don't think they've really focused a ton on the keyboards in albums prior, so this is really a new focus that's bringing a really cool new aesthetic to their sound, and I think that's what binds this all together and makes this a really compelling release. New Moon Harvest starts with some haunting keyboards, some soft drums entering the fray, a dark and quirky vibe once again. There's a really sweet electronic guitar solo with near orchestral sounds behind it. Beautiful piece, a bit more laid back, a bit more haunting, not quite as upfront as some of the other tracks have been, but a nice breather as we move through the track list. Losing Game has a bit of that electronica sound to it, leading to some persistent acoustic guitars and passionate vocals, growing in intensity as it continues along, some furious drumming and deep keyboard washes. We get this cool prog metal riff about halfway through, reminding me a bit of like heavier Porcupine Tree. There's some great layered vocals towards the end. It's just a really cool build of a piece with a lot of interesting things. It's 5.5 minutes long, but it really gives a lot in that short time space. I think it's really cool what they're able to build and accomplish. White Rabbit's Hole is near 7 minutes. We get a slow driving guitar part with vocals and electronic beats. We get an explosive beat with stabbing intensity, guitars and keys coming in. It's really great. It switches to great effect to an explosive finale with great keyboards and full intensity. It's an amazing track. Really cool. One of my favorite tracks on the record is next, Night Drive, which starts a bit slower and more methodical with some acoustic guitar picking and a more deliberate beat. Really sits in this cool vibe and this electronica style sound before it ramps up in intensity with these expressive synths and persistent guitars. And 4 minutes in, we get this kind of big proggy wall of sound and an intensity of some cool bluesy guitar licks happening as well, and it just ramps up and up into the stratosphere, giving this really amazing instrumental section that really captivates me as a listener. I think this is a brilliant section and a great buildup of music. Really cool. Vicious Circle is another great one. Great rhythms, great intense guitar stabbing synth work, continuing in much the vein as of the rest of the album. And then we close on Hopium, which is a little over 8 minutes long. So you get some futuristic burbling synths underneath some passionate vocals. Bit of a slower burn with some hummed vocals in the back, but it explodes with passion when it needs to. Very breathtaking track that really takes its time. We get an addictive beat about 3.5 minutes in with this cool guitar line and synth part. Just continues to morph and groove along, somehow sounding a bit repetitive, but at the same time going from strength to strength and allowing enough variety and added layers to keep it interesting. And the ending is really cool with these big intense swells and this creepy piano coming up out of nowhere and closing the album with this cool piano sound. And then for those who have the CD version, from what I hear, it comes with a bonus track called Come Through, which is just a pleasant ballad to close things with. Some really pleasantly played guitar and some added vocals and organ sounds, light strings for texture, and some oohs and ahs as the band kicks in for this beautiful finale. So this is a really nice special track to have at the end of the record to kind of serve as a come down and a breather after all of the more heavy, intense work that came before it. So a really fantastic album that came out of nowhere and surprised me. I really like this sound. It's modern, it's fresh, it's catchy, has earworms and hooks, but doesn't sacrifice that prog metal intensity. It sounds very much in line with what I think modern progressive metal should be. Doesn't sound dated, doesn't sound like it's copycatting other bands. It's standing on its own 2 feet, and I just really appreciate what they've put into the mix here and how they've added their own personality and style to what's an excellent record. So definitely worth your time and attention, especially if you're a fan of progressive metal, if you love Leprous and what they bring to the table, if you like a bit of that darker and twisted mood, if you like some 80s synth styles into your music. I think all of that is definitely an indicator that you'll appreciate and enjoy this album. So that's what I have for you guys today. Hopefully you appreciated this review and you'll go check out the record if you're so inclined. It's out now wherever you pick up your records from, whether that's a streaming service or physical record store. This is available out in the wild, so hopefully you guys will pick it up and check it out. So thank you guys so much for joining me, and hopefully you'll have a great day and continue to have a great week. So thank you guys, and I'll catch you hopefully in a future episode. Bye everybody, enjoy the music.